Chairs over here for you. Well, thank you all so much for coming in tonight. Really appreciate you all taking the time coming in on a busy Thursday, I'm sure, especially right before the holiday. So appreciate you coming in and being here tonight. We are here to celebrate the release of A Space in the Heart by Larry Carlat. Congratulations. He's here tonight in conversation with David Hochman, so I'll do a quick bio on both of them, but it's usually a 30-minute conversation between the two of you. We'll open it up to a Q&A, and we have plenty of books to buy and sign off on them. So for quick bios, Larry Carlat is a writer and editor whose work has appeared in New York Times Magazine, Esquire, GQ, Rolling Stone, Men's Journal, Men's Health, and Slam, to name a few. He's also a grief coach and volunteer group leader for bereaved parents at Our House Grief Support Center in Los Angeles, and a member of its board of directors. He lives in Venice, California, with his significant other, Jane Evans, and their dog, Joe, which is a wonderful name. Love human names for dogs. And David Hochman is an award-winning journalist with bylines in New York Times, AARP, GQ, Forbes, and many other venues. He also works with authors, writers, and brands as an editorial strategist, ghostwriter, and story whisperer. So enjoy the conversation, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I've known Larry for a while, and I've read your work for a long time, and I was still apprehensive about reading this book because,
good reason.
You know, a survival guide for grieving parents. I have a child who's 21. I know human beings, and it is, you know, it's daunting. When I started reading it, I was very happy because it wasn't what I expected. But I do think there's anxiety a little bit around grief and around talking about grief. People don't know what to say when they see you. They say, I'm sorry for your loss. They say, is there anything let me know if there's anything I can do. And in the book, you talk about how there's not even words for certain things, including there's no word for parents who've lost a child. So I thought maybe we can start with you reading that part of the book about what you've come up with for this.
And that was just a perfect segue. That was really just so good. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's so overwhelming. I feel that. So this is called We Are Extraordinary Parents. I've always found it strange that there's no word for a parent who loses a child. Why do widows, widowers, and orphans get to have all the fun? I think it's time for someone to right this wrong. Bear with me for a moment as I reaffirm what you already know. Children aren't supposed to die before their parents. That's just not the way life should work. We give birth to children or adopt them. We love and nurture them. We raise them. They grow up. We grow old, and then we die. The circle of life, sunrise, sunset, rinse and repeat. Choose your own metaphor. That's what every parent expects, and by and large, it's also the way things play out. Losing a child, no matter the circumstances, goes against the natural order of things. It's not part of the ordinary experience. It is something entirely different, and we become something entirely different. When your child is taken from you, you are no longer ordinary parents. Ordinary parents don't visit their child in a cemetery. Ordinary parents don't cry themselves to sleep at night. Ordinary parents don't wake up each morning knowing they'll never see their child again. We become extraordinary. We become the ones who are unlike the others. We become the newest members of the world's cruelest club, one that is already overcrowded and where the cost to join is the steepest price imaginable. We become those people, the tragic ones who are whispered about and pitied. We become the ones who are shattered, seemingly beyond repair. Remember Mary Tyler Moore in Ordinary People? That. But after a while, something strange takes place that's right out of a Marvel comic book. A metamorphosis occurs during our grief and mourning, transforming us from extraordinary to extraordinary. A lot happens when you close up the space between those two words. We are extraordinary parents, not in the sense that we are exceptionally good, which is what people usually mean when they use that adjective. But look it up and you'll find we are the very definition of the word. A, going beyond what is usual, regular, or customary. B, exceptional to a very marked extent. We are extraordinary parents who must go on living in the world with a hole in our heart. We are extraordinary parents who, in many cases, still love and care for our other children. We are extraordinary parents who go to work every day and function as human beings, while most people are unaware of our secret identities. We are extraordinary parents who feel things that no ordinary parent has ever felt, and we can endure the deepest pain because that has become one of our superpowers. And that's another notable thing about us. We all have different superpowers because each of us experiences our loss in our own particular way. Some of us have an unlimited capacity for compassion and forgiveness. Some of us become impervious to pain. Some of us are masters of disguise. Some of us can turn to stone. Some of us can become invisible. And then there are those of us who can open up and share it with the world. We walk among you. We are your friends and neighbors, your co-workers, the quiet couple who sat at the table next to you in a restaurant last night. We are the extraordinary parents, and we don't mind if you want to call us by our first name. It's amazing to me. I've written this so many times, and you know the whole editing thing, and hearing the words out loud, it's still that just they hurt, and it's just it boggles my mind that I still feel this way.
When you read it, you feel it. There's some sections of the book that are like a punch in the gut. There are also funny sections, very funny sections, surprisingly funny sections. There's hope, which I really appreciated. Is there anything in the book that you wish you knew 6 years ago?
Everything. Really, I say it as much, but it's so true that, you know, I wish there was a guy like me who had a book, you know, because there was, you know, and someone in a grief group, in my grief group, said those words. I wish there was a manual or something to help us navigate the pain. And that was sort of like the genesis of doing it in the first place. But yeah, I mean, I think what makes this different than just about any grief book that I've read, that it really just charts the emotional journey of what you're going through, where it's not just denial and it's not just, you know, one of the stages. It's all about feelings. So.
And grief doesn't end. It's not like something you get over, right? It stays with you. But what happened? Like what surprised you about where grief took you?
The biggest surprise, and to this day, it's still amazing. And Marilyn and I get to see it. Where are you, Marilyn? She's my partner in crime. Is you witness a transformation that is sort of imperceptible, but people come in and they are broken. And I was one of those people, and Marilyn was one of those people. And over time, you see like the light coming back in people's eyes. And then over a longer period of time, there's a transformation that takes place. And it's incredible. And to witness it and to be a small part of it, again, it just, it moves me to tears. And it's amazing. It's just the most amazing thing. So I'm not sure I answered your question, but...
Can you talk about the transformation for you? Talk a little bit about what you said to me the other day. You wouldn't be recognizable to the person that moved to LA
I'm
from,
barely recognizable.
yeah. So what,
I was a
who are you now?
I'm Larry Woo Woo from Los Angeles. I'm the Pied Piper of psychedelics, you know. So, and like 12 years ago when I moved here, if you said that's who I was going to be, you know, you're out of your mind. But
you also said you weren't a crier, right?
I was a little bit of a crier, but Rob just cracked me open where now I'm world class, and it really takes nothing to make me cry. And I've been crying tonight, just seeing people that I know and I hadn't met before, and it's you know, I keep making this joke, and I'll make it again. I am George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. You're the townspeople. It's really an incredible feeling.
Can you talk a little bit about men grieving and why men sometimes need extra help in that department?
Yeah, I think they tend to suck it in and be stoic and be strong. But inside, it's the same stuff. But it's all sort of buried inside, and even in grief groups, when there's a guy in the group, it's, you know, he's usually quiet. He's usually the last person to say anything. It's a little bit pulling teeth, but I think it's sort of our society and the way we live in the world and all of that stuff. But, you know, I also sort of grief coach guys one-on-one. And when it's one-on-one, it's a whole other ball game. And both of us sort of share, you know, this very intimate conversation, and there's like no barrier because there's no judgment, there's no other people. So yeah, and I think that's sort of the short answer.
One of the things that I love is some of the, I don't want to call them exercises, but you do some things in the book that I hadn't seen before, just like writing a letter to Rob, writing from Rob's point of view. Can you talk a bit about why that's useful and what it was like for you to do that?
Well, the letters started, I mean, like the first thing in the book is a letter that I wrote to Rob when he was 7 years old. And it was in Esquire magazine, and it was why I didn't want to adopt him. So that's where the first letter started. And spoiler alert, you know, it was love at first sight. It was just loved him. But then it's my way of talking to him, and it was also my way of grieving. I mean, I started to blog, and I wrote him letters every couple of weeks, and it really just sort of kept me connected to him, to the point where I thought it would be interesting for him to write back. And it's also one of the exercises that we do in our grief groups, where sort of in the beginning, the parents in our grief groups will write a letter to their child. And then later on, generally, I would say a year later, because it's probably the most difficult exercise, we ask them to do a letter from their child. And for me, I mean, I can mimic Rob's voice, so it was just incredibly comforting. And I thought like we should let him have his voice in the book a little bit.
And there's also a great scene where you and God have a conversation, and
It's the best.
It's funny, and I did think it was the funniest line in the book, and I'm just gonna spoil it.
No, read
but
it.
The last thing is Larry saying, "Amen, brother. Last question: will I ever see Rob again?" And God says, "I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you." I mean, that's like world-class comedy.
Thank you. You're too kind.
How has grief shifted for you? I know when it first happens and it's raw, people fear that they're going to forget the person, they're going to forget the voice of the person, and that they're never going to make it through. You're here,
in one piece. I think for me, I think it was how I viewed Rob that shifted, and I think that it took me a while to sort of get there, but Rob was just a pain in the ass from the day we adopted him. And in life, we had a really sort of bumpy relationship, even though I've never loved anyone the way I loved Rob. But after he died, I sort of accepted the fact that he was mentally ill, and I just started to look at him. I sort of got in touch with his essence, and and that's what I think of when I think of Rob, that he had a great sense of humor, that he was smart, that he had a big heart. I don't think about any of the bullshit. So I just thought about, almost an idealized version of him. And that's what I live with. And I think once I saw him that way and I knew that he wasn't struggling with anything, I was able to make peace with it. But I think it was really the way I sort of reframe Rob's and my relationship with him, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. And things still come up, right? Reminders still come up, unexpected emotions still come up.
Every day. I mean, I talk to Rob every day. Man, you miss so much already. So good to see you. I'm sorry, we're just a good friend.
That reminders come up every day.
Every day. So I have a picture of Rob on my bookcase, and I sit there and I just turn to him and I'll go, dude, what's going on? And I told him that he needs to be here tonight with me. So he's right here. You can't see him, but he's here, and he's always here. So, and shit just comes like, it's in the book, but I'm watching The Bear, and then I don't know if you guys have all seen The Bear, but it's heavy, and it's about suicide. And right at the end of I think it's the first season, there's like a freeze frame on John Bernthal, and he's just smiling. And I see that's Rob. That's his face, So it happens not every day, but it happens a lot. And the deal is, even though it makes me cry, it's a beautiful feeling. It feels good. I'm not sad. It's not like, oh, I wish you were here. Of course I do. But when I cry for him, it's just that I'm still so connected to him.
Mm-hmm. There is a very powerful part at the end of the book. And I know that you wanted to read it. Are you up for reading it?
I'm up for reading it. Get some tissues. So happy to see you guys. Just give me a second here. This is called Life Rolls On. It's the last chapter in the book. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You made it. I'm so glad to see you here. I wish I could give you a great big hug. Pour yourself a drink, put your feet up, and enjoy the moment. No one deserves it more than you. You've been through a lot and have come a long way. As time goes by, the early days of your grief have become fuzzy. You remember the pain, but you don't really remember. It's sort of like how some women forget the intensity of childbirth, or so I've been told. They forget the physical pain, but not the memory of it. That's why it's important to take a look at how you and your grief have changed. It's truly amazing, almost magical, when you look back on it. You've progressed from feeling completely hopeless and in the worst pain you've ever felt in your life to cherishing each day you have left. How the hell did that happen? You know how, but even that begins to fade. All the hard work you've put in, all the tears you've shed, all the dark nights of the soul you've wrestled with get packed away in your head and heart because the worst is over and life rolls on. Whenever I think of those three little words, I think of Rob. I see those words tattooed in cursive on his left forearm. When he was here with us, I thought those words were emblematic of his no fucks given attitude. But now I think they're a message to me and a message to you. The message is something we all know and have always known. And I don't think I need to spell it out for you, because I think we all feel it deep down inside. We live our lives differently than we have in the past, and differently than others who have never experienced anything like the depth of our loss. For us, life rolls on has become a way of life. We need to do things that feel important to us and to others. We are more present, slowing life's roll and amplifying each moment. We appreciate every day we have left on earth and the day ahead whenever it comes, when we meet our child again. We still curse out idiot drivers who cut us off on the freeway. We talk too loud and too much on our phones like everybody else. And we often forget to replace the toilet paper roll. We're not perfect. We fuck up like everyone else. We're extraordinary, but we're also human, which again is absolutely remarkable given the trauma and drama we've endured. We're still standing and doing our best, and that's what our kids would want us to do. I know this, and you know this, because that's what they tell us every day. They remind us to be happy. They remind us to be kind. They remind us to be grateful. They remind us to be honest. They remind us how much love we have in our hearts and how we should spread it around far and wide, but also leave a little left over for ourselves. And that's what I'm going to remind you about right now. Do me a favor and close your eyes. Picture your child's smiling face. Stay with it a moment. Breathe it in. Savor it. Have you ever seen a more beautiful face? Now I want you to remember the day they were born and the first time you set eyes on them and how it was love at first sight. Remember their gorgeous tiny face and remember how incredible you felt on that wonderful day. Breathe that day in as much as you can. Now fast forward to another happy time in their life. Maybe it was a birthday or a trip to Disneyland or a day at the beach. Picture how happy they look blowing out the candles or frolicking in the waves or whatever they're doing in that joyful moment you've chosen. Now place your hand over your heart and feel them smiling and saying, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." Have you ever seen a happier face? Okay, now take a deep breath and imagine their face today. They look all grown up with a beatific, grown-up smile. But if you look closely, you can still see the baby that lives inside them. Now tell them how much you miss them. Say the words out loud and tell them how much you love them and will always love them. Say it over and over again until you can hear them saying it back to you. Smother them with kisses and hug them tight. Feel their heart beating next to yours. Feel their tears running down your cheek. Now, as gently as you can, let them go and whisper goodbye. Open your eyes. That was not easy.
Yeah, I mean, what was that like for you to write?
The first time I wrote it, I burst out crying when I wrote "Open Your Eyes." It just, the whole thing just flooded into me. And there's lots of things in the book that make me feel deeply to this day. I mean, I just recorded the audiobook and it was the same deal where I'm crying and again, like I said before, I know this stuff backwards and forwards, but there's a lot of emotion packed in here. I wrote it with my heart and with Rob by my side, and I think you feel it a lot.
Mm-hmm. I know that we want to open it up to questions or comments or thoughts, but I also want to say, which I said the other day, I mean, the beautiful thing about getting this down in a book is that this lives, and Rob lives in that
Absolutely.
story, and this is an undying tribute. And so it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
So yeah, if there are questions, if there are comments, if there are tributes of love.
Don't make me read anymore. Although if I have to.
I have a question.
Of course you do.
You should have a question.
I know.
Person is as good as its questions, I sometimes say. Do you find, in the group especially, that it matters or it doesn't matter how the child died?
Great question.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I think, everybody grieves in their own way. It's a custom fit, but there's so much that's universal. And it doesn't matter at all. It really doesn't. I mean, everyone comes in and it's a shit show. And then little by little becomes less of a shit show, but it doesn't make a difference how their child passed.
I have a question. In
Yes.
your support group, did you notice that as people spoke, that other traumas came out and became part of the discussion? Traumas from earlier in their lives?
Sometimes, not always. I mean, I think part of being sort of group leaders, we're sort of keeping them on message, but sometimes it comes out. But I would say also it's a place where it's the only place you can share about this. So people are eager to share. And then, of course, they're all like sort of connected, and it comes up, but I would say it's on the tangent. Mars?
So, I hear so many amazing tools in the work that you're doing with the people. Like I hear it in your, the visioning and the imagining your son next to you and all that. But I'm curious, going back to David asked you earlier, what prompted you to go on this level of a healing journey?
That's a good question.
Because I know you're a writer, you can write. Right?
Well, but writing, I started with writing because that was the way I grieved. It was the way I processed what happened, and it was a way to ventilate and to stay connected to Rob. But I don't think I saw myself trudging down the road and being on a journey at all. I felt I was just I was going through it, and I was very cognizant of not running away from it. I talk about it in the book, but right from the jump, I felt I wanted to sort of not wallow in it, but I was in it. There was no denial. I mean, and I would almost not beat myself up, but I would look at pictures and videos. I immersed myself in it, and it was intuitive. I mean, I didn't realize that was going to be the fastest way to get through. It was for me. It's not for a lot of other people, and a lot of other people don't want to sort of immerse themselves, but it was an intuitive thing. And, and then I was sort of blogging about it, and then I sort of put it together in this book. But what I'm saying is I don't think I was thinking about it at all. I was just moving through it the way I think we each do it. I always say grief is a solo act. It's sort of like your own prayer. But I was sort of making it up for me, and it sort of worked, if that makes sense. Janie?
So you were blogging almost immediately after Rob died, and working through stuff, and but you didn't write this until like 2 years ago. I think you started writing it, and it was after you had the psychedelic experience, and then and I wonder if you feel that the quality and depth of your experience, the writing and your experience was, like, how was it different? Was it different after,
After
those
psychedelics?
journeys that you did?
Well, I think with psychedelics, the main thing it did for me was it allowed me to see and be with Rob's spirit. And whether it's the psychedelics or was I really with his spirit doesn't make a difference. I chose to believe that I've been with Rob's spirit. I've seen it. I've seen it a couple of times on a couple of different trips. And it's the most comforting, healing, most beautiful thing that I've ever experienced. It's so profound. And it also makes me think that his energy, whatever you want to call it, exists somewhere. I can sleep at night and I feel good. I feel he's not struggling. He's in a good place. He's good. And every time I do, I don't see him every time, but I've seen him a number of times and we've communicated. And again, is it, the Larry movie in my head starring Rob? Maybe, but who gives a shit? It makes me feel good. I have become a little bit the Pied Piper of psychedelics, particularly for parents who have lost a child, because no matter what the experience, it is healing. You might not necessarily see your child, but it's still a healing thing, and we need it more than anyone. Beth?
Thank you, Larry. You've given everyone such a gift. I'm so moved. I'm curious, you were writing, you were blogging, you were doing the group. How did the act of writing the book affect your grief? Like, were there revelations in the writing process? Like, what did that look like as a journey for you in your relationship to your own grief?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that I did when I was blogging, I sort of had conversations with myself and I wrote it that way. And it was almost like, part of me was, Larry the therapist or Larry the listener. But I was able to sort of work out things that I was thinking about, just having sort of two separate voices. And I found that was like, I did it every month. And a little bit, I did it just to sort of track my feelings and see, if there's going to be any progression. But it was having conversations with myself, and and I wound up doing a little of that in the book. But that's the short answer.
Question.
Yes.
Is the grief that you speak of in the book specifically about a parent losing a child, or is it broader?
I would say it's both. It's very specific to losing a child, and to get more specific, to lose a child to suicide, and someone who had mental illness. So that's very, very specific. But I really think anyone who has suffered any loss will relate to things in the book, because there's just so much that is universal.
What did you learn? What did you learn about? I mean, you write in the book about how people say funny things or they don't know what to say. I'm sorry for your loss, etc. What does work, or what did work for you?
I don't think that there were words. I think what I appreciated most, and I wrote about it, is that people came over and hugged me, and that's the medicine you need more than anything. And also people that would just shut up and listen. And that's what we need, particularly early on. We need to either get our shit out but we don't need to hear, there are no words that are going to make us feel any better. And everyone, I feel, has only the best intentions, but the words that we don't hear them, they don't get inside. So I'll take a hug, and then, if I can do some talking with a friend or anyone who wanted to listen, that would be my preference, rather than saying some bullshit that I can't even hear and maybe they don't even mean.
I think cookies help you too.
Cookies and cake.
Do you have time to read? Do you have time to read anything else?
Yeah.
There's one more question over here. If you
Oh,
want.
who?
Me,
Over in the corner.
Oh, Sky.
what would you say to someone who's in the beginning phases of grief, like bullshit, I don't believe in hope? What would you say to them?
I didn't hear.
If someone doesn't believe in hope,
If someone doesn't believe in hope,
Yeah, they don't buy it.
I would say fine.
why don't you read that?
Yeah. Let me finish off. But I would say fine, and then I would say give it time. But perfect segue to what I was just about to read. So thank you. This one's called A Little Reminder. Here's a little reminder of an important thing that often gets lost in the grief sauce. It's simply this: there is always hope. It's hard to see sometimes. The sadness blinds us, but hope is always right there with you. All you have to do is reach out for it. Whenever you're having a really bad day, wrap your arms around it and don't let go. And it doesn't hurt to also hold on to it on the not so bad days as well. Let hope guide you. Hope is the light in the darkness. Whatever you're feeling right now will pass. Things will get better, and then they'll get worse, and then they'll get better again. You know the drill. You've been on the exhausting grief ride for what feels like forever, but it's not forever. And as long as you have hope in your heart, everything is going to be okay, because hope is everything. Hope makes you look forward to the next day. Hope heals your heart. As Rob would say, hope is dope.
Nice.
How are we on time? Oh, good.
Yeah. So, are you going to sign some?
Yeah, I'll sign some books and say hi and give people hugs.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Like I said, we have plenty of books up front to purchase. We'll keep you guys right here for the signing, and thank you all for coming.
You want to just grab this? I'm gonna hug some people. I need to hug you.